Hi, I'm Ryan of MidNite Solar. Today I want to show you how to use the local application software that comes with your Classic or Classic Lite charge controller. I'm going to assume that you already have your Classic hooked to the internet or the network and you've already figured out the local application software on the PC. If you're having any troubles with that, please see our other videos about networking your Classic or the local application manual, or call tech support. So with no further ado, I'm going to jump right in and start explaining the local application. Okay, as you can see here, this is the minimized view that will pop up when you open the application. We get a green light telling us the Classic is happy, there's no errors. We get the name of the Classic, its IP address and port number, the kilowatt hours it's produced today, the actual power it's making at the moment, and the charge stage it's in. Now, I do want to show you these things real quick. Here we have the About tab. We can view the end user license agreement. We can check for updates. This will also show you the version of the local app you're running. In this case, it's 0.3.4. We'll click the X, get out of there. I want to go back to application and spend just a minute on configuration. Configuration is set so that you can do, it allows you to view your Classic from away, or if you have auto detect Classics unchecked, you can set the IP address of the Classic on the local network so you only see that one. This can be handy. You might want to use like a Dyn DNS account, or if you have a static IP address, you can put that right in here. The Dyn DNS account, what that does, it's a DNS server that monitors your IP address at home and gives you a URL that will point to that IP address. The issue being is most residential internet accounts are a dynamic IP address, not a static IP address. What this means is they change routinely. And when it changes, you no longer know your IP address at home, so you can't get back home. Dyn DNS is your GPS to home, if you will. It will always get this program back to your router. Then what you have to do is in your router, you have to port forward the particular Classic's IP address and port number so that the local application, once it finds your router, knows where to find your Classic. There's a whole lot of details on that in the local application manual. Please consult that for port forwarding. We'll close this out now. And without any further ado, we're going to jump right into the status panel. First thing I want to point out here, the name of the Classic. And if there was multiple Classics, there'd be a drop-down arrow right here that would allow me to click it and pick from all of my Classics and select on the fly. You'll also notice there's a minimize button, which will take us back to the minimize screen. All the Classics would show up here as well. We'll click this again. We have input voltage. That's the input voltage to the charge controller right now. Kilowatt hours. This is the kilowatt hours it's produced today. Watts, instantaneous watts at this moment. Battery voltage, in this case you see it's 48.7, 48.8. And the amps into the battery or out of the charge controller actually at this moment is 3.3. We also have a light here for auxiliary 1, and you see it's off. That will turn green when it's on. We have a light here for auxiliary 2, which is off. This will also turn green when it's on. Now we'll go down to the status tab. You notice this is a Classic 250KS in solar mode. This gives us the function of the auxiliaries, auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2, and their status. It'll tell us the charge status, charge stage if you will. We're in bulk MPPT right now. This will say float, float MPPT, resting, etc. Temperatures. This is the switching FETs, temperature they're running at. PCB, the circuit board inside the Classic, temperature it's running at. You'll notice there's no battery temperature sensor installed on this Classic. If there was, it would show up here. These temperatures are in Celsius here. They can be changed to Fahrenheit. I will show you where to do that a little later. We'll go to alerts, and in this case there are no alerts. The alerts will show up as icons as well up on your dashboard right here on the power meter. I want to talk about alerts a little bit. There are three types of alerts on the local application software in the Classic. One is what we call a green alert, or it's just information. It doesn't really matter, it's just telling you something like partial shading. The other one is an amber alert. This can be something that is not a problem, but the Classic is doing something because of something. For instance, current limit. It's reached its current limit, the screen will turn yellow, you'll get an amber alert, there'll be an icon on the dashboard. Then there's also red alerts, and the red alerts are bad. They're something like ground fault or arc fault. They have caused the Classic to turn off, not charge the batteries, and need you to intervene. Okay, that concludes alerts. We'll move on to the info tab. As you see here, this is a Classic 250KS. We have its MAC address, its device ID, IP address and port number. We also have the firmware revision, the Classic firmware revision in this Classic, as well as the network software revision in this Classic. Now we'll move on to the data tab. Okay, in the beginning we have daily values. You see we've made 0 kilowatt hours, we've made 1 amp hour, and we spent no time in float yet today. It's a rainy day here in Maine, not making hardly any power, as you can see. And we have the lifetime values. This Classic has made 190.8 kilowatt hours in its lifetime. Unfortunately, it has not made 429 million amp hours. These older Classics had a register for amp hours that was not set correctly. The new software that you will get with amp hours functionality will have that set correctly. We'll move on to live data. This is actually data that's pulled from the Classic. The local application software will monitor the Classic and it will log 12 data points all the time it's connected to the Classic. So anytime the PC is running and the local application software is connected to the Classic charge controller, it's saving all 12 of those data points in 2-second intervals. There is an export button on here that will allow you to export that data to your PC in an Excel file for use later. So now I'll go ahead and show you how to use those values. Here we click on the values we want to chart. In this case we'll pick battery voltage, kilowatt hours, watts, and battery current. We'll close that out, and as you see, there's our graph. This is showing us the value for that half-hour period. We haven't been connected to the Classic for half an hour. As you can see, it's only been about 12 minutes. There's our graph. We can pick the dates we want to graph. We can pick the extent of the graph, half hour all the way up to a month. We can pick the type of graph we want. Do you want a line? Do you want a bar? If you don't like the formal look, we have a sketch version. And like I said, you can export this data, as seen here, to a file on your desktop as an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, now I want to go to the offline data. And while this loads, I want to take the time to explain that the Classic itself, the Classic and the Classic Lite, store 380 days of historical data. High voltage for the battery, high PV voltage, time in float, other data like that. That data is stored on the Classic itself, but the local app will actually go out and request that when you click offline. So as we see here, these are days prior to today. So yesterday we made 2.7 kilowatt hours. 4 days ago we made 5.2 kilowatt hours and spent 12 minutes in float. All this data is here. When it's all exported out of the Classic into the local app, the export light will light up. Once that is lit up, then we can export that just like that as an Excel spreadsheet to our desktop if we want. We'll go ahead and do that live. And there it is, right there on our desktop. We'll open that file up, and there you go. We just pulled 380 days worth of data off the Classic as an Excel spreadsheet. Let me close that out. Let me minimize that down. Go back to status. So that concludes the basic configuration of the local application software. I do want to point out there is a configuration tab, as we see here. There are 4 settings on the configuration tab. There is settings, there's basic, advanced, and tech. I'm going to run through basic right now, but I'm going to make 3 more videos after this of the basic and the advanced and the tech. The settings tab, as you can see here, we can change from 1 kilowatt to 2 kilowatt to 3 kilowatt on the power scale. We can change when we check for updates for the local application software. We can also update now. We can pick the color of the background if we want. We could actually change the color of the background here if you don't like green. We could pick metric or US imperial. Again, this is back to the Celsius or Fahrenheit. We can select auto detect classics or enable data logging. In this case we have both selected because we want to auto detect classics and we want to enable data logging. I will explain that auto detect classics, if you were in a building with a lot of classics on the network, then there was only one you wanted to talk to for some reason. If you uncheck auto detect classics and go back to the configuration under the application, then you can put in the IP address of that one classic and only talk to it, and I'll have to see the other 99 for that instance. Down here we have unlock code. The configuration portions, the basic, the advanced, and the tech, require you to enter a password. Now this password is a serial number of the Classic, and it can be found on the right-hand side on a barcode sticker, as well as in the status menu on the MNGP of a standard Classic. You'll enter that number here, you'll press enter, it will save that number, and that will unlock the 3 tabs. And that concludes the local application basic usage. Please stay tuned for the basic configuration tab instructional video. Until next time, I'm Ryan of MidNite Solar.